Good morning. Happy Monday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. So, very exciting morning for me. I got to talk to somebody I hadn't talked to in a long time. He's at the very high level of professional sports, so we got to talk a little bit about that. And we were talking about foot types a little bit this morning. It seems like it's been foot week, kind of like Shark Week, where we started talking about the feet last week and it's carried over to this week. Anyway, we're talking about different foot types and what we should see on a performance level. And I thought it would be kind of neat to connect this to a squat and a deadlift and how your foot type might actually influence your performance in the gym. So I can give you some distinguishing characteristics there, and then maybe some modifications that actually may help your lifts a little bit. So let's dig right into this. And so let's start with our 3 foot types. So I break the foot down, I make it very, very simple. I have what I would call an early propulsive foot. So we have the tibia that's sort of behind the foot. This would be somebody that has a very supinated foot or a very high arch, and then a very stiff big toe. So the first ray is plantar flex, as they would say. It's pushing into the ground. The middle range, so the middle propulsive foot, is where we start to get relative motion. So when I say relative motion, it's this motion here where the calcaneus and the talus move in opposition. So there's a lot of relative motion there. And so that would be your middle propulsive strategy. This is where we're going to see a lot of dorsiflexion occur. And then we're going to see this late propulsive foot. So we're going to take this relative motion that we had in the middle range, we're going to lock it back together. These bones are going to move as one, and we're going to see the heel lift off the ground and then the toes extend as such. And so while you may be biased towards one of these 3 foot types, keep in mind that we got this broad spectrum, this big gradient that makes you sort of like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But we're going to kind of break this down into the 3 foot types and how it relates to your squat and deadlift. If we look at the middle one, where we have all of this relative motion, these are the people that tend to have what we would consider really, really pretty body weight squats. So these people have great body weight squatting capabilities, but they might not be terribly strong because the requirements to get into this deeper squat pattern and this relative motion that occurs requires a lot of eccentric orientation to capture these deeper squat patterns. And so if you don't develop this concentric capability to overcome the loads that you may want to actually lift, if you're one of those people that are chasing numbers, you might find that you're just not meant to be that strong. But you do have a pretty squat, and so people will be jealous of you for that reason alone. But let's talk about the 2 other ends. Okay, so we've got an early propulsive foot with the high arch, and then we've got this late propulsive foot, which actually has a much lower arch, but different force producing capabilities. So those people that are biased towards this early propulsive strategy with the higher arch and the plantar flex first ray will tend to have a squat and a deadlift that are very comparable in their force producing capabilities. So let's just say you got a 300-pound squat, you probably got a deadlift that's probably in the same general vicinity. Okay, if you're biased towards the other end of the extreme, so you're in the late propulsive capabilities, you're going to have an amazing deadlift and a pretty parochial squat, relatively speaking. So maybe you can deadlift 500 pounds, but your squat's only like 3. So there's a big gap there. And so now what we want to think about is, okay, how do I sort of even this out to some degree? What are the ways that I can take this big differential between my squat and my deadlift and sort of bring my squat up? Because you're always going to be a good deadlifter when you're in this late propulsive strategy. And so we can use our box squatting as a point of reference or an exercise of reference as to how we want to modify training to sort of even this thing out. So when we talk about the people that have this huge differential between squatting and deadlifting, they are concentric overcomers all day, every day. They're very, very high force producers. Their center of gravities are always forward. And so what we need to teach them to do is to capture some measure, some measure of a yielding strategy. And so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to use the box squat. And so this is going to be very much like a traditional powerlifting style box squat. So if you've ever read anything from Louis Simmons or West Side, and where they talk about deloading their body weight onto the box, that's going to be your number one strategy to help bring up your squatting capabilities to your deadlift. Because what deloading on the box does is allows you to create this yielding strategy. So you're actually distributing the load through your skeleton and through your connective tissues, and that allows you to actually capture the appropriate depth and then spring back up off the box. Because typically what you're running into when you have this huge differential between your squat and your deadlift is that you just can't capture this yielding strategy, which makes it so difficult. What you may find is that over time, as the load increases, that your squat gets a little prettier, but you're still not be able to create that return on investment as you descend. It's still, you're a grinder. You're trying to push through this thing because you just don't have the yielding strategy. So deloading onto the box is going to be your number one strategy. If we go to the other extreme, where we have this person with the high arch, plantar flex first ray, tibia tends to be behind, we can still use the box squat. But in this circumstance, this is going to be one of those situations where you do not want to spend too much time on the box. So you're going to try to get off the box fairly quickly. It'll eventually turn into a touch and go. And that's going to start to bring your squat numbers up as well. But you're always going to be this guy that has a squat and a deadlift that are very, very comparable. Sorry, you picked the wrong parents if you're trying to create the big deadlift. You're just not going to be the best deadlifter in the room. However, one of the little compensation strategies you can use is to go sumo. That's going to get you a little bit bigger numbers on your deadlift, by the way. So I hope this gives you a little bit of strategy to play with. This was kind of a fun one to talk about coming off this call this morning. If you got any questions about foot type or how to modify your training, send me a question at askbillhartman@gmail.com, or post them up on Instagram here or on YouTube if this is where you're watching it. So have a great Monday. I will see you guys tomorrow.